Hi, and welcome to Rate That Album, the back and forth podcast
And
review
now,
with myself,
Rate
Paul
That
Muad'Dib,
Album,
and my wonderful
Season
friend,
3,
Joe Fremen. Joe, how are you
with
doing
Paul
today, sir?
Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming.
It was going pretty good after
Two
my first
guys
orgasm of the day,
who know
Paul.
stuff.
Is it like a fire drill, buddy?
Sure is, Paul.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the Dresden Dolls' second album, Yes, Virginia. But before we get to that, Joe, there's a couple of housekeeping things I wanted to get into. First of all, Joe, we found an audience. In the last 30 days through SoundCloud, we've had 456 plays.
Oh, God.
So thank you.
I hope it's not hate listening,
We've had 209 in Boardman. Now, I'm not sure if that's Boardman, Oregon or Boardman, Ohio. So those of you that are listening in Boardman, please let us know. I'm assuming it's Ohio because we've also had 103 listens in the last 30 days in Columbus as well, which is in Ohio. So I think we have an audience in Ohio. Thanks. Ohio.
I don't think I've ever been to Ohio. I might have driven through it. Sorry.
I have a
It wasn't me going to various cities in Ohio and from different IP addresses listening to.
And that could be it too. Could be people are using NordVPN or Surfshark, and I don't know. I do have a Ohio story. Actually, I went to Ohio when I was 15 years old in Columbus. Not Columbus. I was Cleveland, Ohio, and it was the first time in my life I had a gun pulled on me. So that was fun. And I stayed.
First time? Like, how many times have you had a gun pulled on you? Because
3.
You know how many times I've had a gun pulled on me?
None.
0.
Yeah, I think
never happened to me. But yet, Paul, you're over there. People just pulling guns on you left and right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 3. Pretty sure I'm 3. If I remember correctly, it's 3. So I was 15 years old. First time I had a gun pulled on me. I will tell that story maybe another time. It is a little sensitive, but needless to say, I was not the culprit of why the gun was pulled on me. I was with a group of people. Someone said the wrong thing to the wrong person, and whoop, guns came out, and it wasn't good.
So I find that hard to believe since it happened 2 more times after that.
The other time,
I think it was absolutely you, Paul.
No, I'm going to tell you. I know.
You know what they say when everybody else is the asshole, Paul.
Yes, I proposed earlier. That was brilliant. I'm actually going to say no. I was not the culprit. I know that sounds weird, but you also have to remember I worked a corner store gas station in the hood. So there was that. So because of this, and I said many, many, many podcasts ago, back when we were doing podcasts above a convenience store, that if we got to 50 subscribers on YouTube, I would do a cover of Just You and me, the Twin Peaks song that James does. Well, in looking at what we have with SoundCloud, what we have on Spotify and everything else, and YouTube, like we're way over that at this point, which is phenomenal. So I think I owe it to our audience. So in the next month, I will have that done, and I will tack that song on to the beginning of one of our podcasts.
Why don't you just make it a standalone? So
you think I should make it a standalone?
Yeah, let's do a standalone, put it on it. That way, if people already heard the podcast or they just want to get to the podcast without hearing that god awful lousy song, Paul. Let's put it separately.
All right, fair enough, Joe. I think that's a good call. I will put that on.
If you've heard the song, you know that. Damn well, I won't re-listen to that podcast because I'm not going to sit through that fucking song.
That is fair. I think that's a smart call, so I will do that. Another housekeeping note. Last album we did, which was the Porridge Radio, I want to say I apologize because going back and listening to it when I was editing it, we were a song off, and that was because of the fact that the first song had nothing to it. It was just that minute. So when we were talking about songs, we were actually off a song. I noticed that. So if that was confusion to any of our listeners, that's why. So just bump it up a track, and that's where you are. Also, you asked me to do a count.
Oh, that amazing songwriting, Paul.
Yes.
The telephone pole songwriting.
So I did a couple of things here. The word I, as just standing alone, I, was used 227 times on that album.
227 times. How long was that album?
That album was...
Maybe like 40, 50 minutes long?
I can actually get the album time. Not look that up as far as what that was. 43 minutes and 56 seconds. The word I was used 227 times. If you include I'm, 266. The next one was this word you, which was another one we brought up, which was brought up 163 times. The word me was 145 times. And just to give you guys context, I also did a search on the word my, or did a count on the word my, and that was only 65 times. So, yeah.
I'm glad they got the coveted Paul Muad'Dib stamp of approval on that album.
You know what? They did. And I know, I talked a little bit before the podcast here. I stand by my thing. I do think there's things they did right. There was definitely a lot of things they did wrong. I'm not excusing that or not saying that, but there were some things that were done right that I still feel warranted. Do I think it belongs on the top 44 or 45 albums of 2022? No, I do not. That I don't stand by. But I do give a recommendation, absolutely, to check it out. And going with that, Joe, now we can get into the Dresden Dolls.
Yeah. So, like, when you said this band, like, Amanda Palmer sounded a lot like that chucklehead from Porridge Radio. I'm not seeing it, Paul. It's like superficial at best, that comparison.
Fair enough.
Surface level, very surface level. Like, just, yeah, I really didn't see much beyond just maybe more of a body kind of low, whatever kind of vocal, but that was it. Like, this was like, the songwriting was just miles beyond and better than Porridge Radio.
Yes. It's like I said, to me, that's why. Okay, so you got to understand with Amanda Palmer and why I thought it was her. She is very much an artist, right? I mean, she has
to tell us all the time on her social media, Paul.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that just tells you she's an artist. It's much like when I walk around and tell everybody I'm a journalist unprompted.
Kind of. No, there are some things. I'm glad you looked into her a little bit, or no.
I know, but after you brought it up, I remember because I knew, I didn't know a whole lot about that, the Kickstarter thing, but I do know a little bit of her social media presence, and why I had to stop following her during the pandemic.
Yeah,
a lot of it is how much of an artist she self-proclaims to be.
Yes, there's a lot of. I mean, let's be fair. There's a pretentiousness there, and I think it's very much in front. Like, there's no question about that. There's a pretentiousness there. We'll get into kind of the Dresden Dolls a little bit, but getting back to what you were saying, that's why I thought it could possibly be her. Because I thought it was almost like because again, I didn't know anything about Porridge Radio, so I thought, okay, this is like one of her artist takes. And yes, her vocal work, meaning
it was her Tony Palmer, Clifton.
That's what Joe, you nailed it.
Just terrible.
Like, it wasn't terrible, but I thought it's in the Amanda Palmer range.
Tony Clifton.
It was in the Amanda Palmer range, but she wasn't hitting some of the highs that she can get to. So that's why I thought maybe this was some kind of theatrical thing or some kind of artistic thing that she was doing, and no, it wasn't. So I was really wrong on that. But that's where my comparisons came in, because I was like, God, this really sounds like something Amanda Palmer would do. So that's kind of.
I would hope not.
I could see it. That's why I brought it up. But yes, you're right. When you listen to the Dresden Dolls, the vocal range of Amanda Palmer is far exceeds.
Yeah, I was just kind of very confused when like you said that, and then I listened to this. I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe Paul has shit in his ears or something because I'm not hearing this.
Well, maybe.
What you do in your private time, Paul, is none of my business.
Thank you for giving me that. Joe, before we did this review, what was your knowledge or experience with the Dresden Dolls?
I had never listened to them.
Okay.
I knew Amanda Palmer. My buddy was like kind of into her in like the late 2000s. I think she did like an EP of Radiohead covers or something like that.
Yes, she did. Yep.
Yeah. So he played that, and I was just like, that was where I began and ended with Amanda Palmer. Then I started kind of following her on social media because she was kind of doing like some cool art shit. And then the pandemic happened, and I got really turned off by her. A lot of it is because she's dragging her social or personal life like in comically weird areas. She made this announcement that Neil Gaiman left her, and like she had all these posts, and then like his plane finally lands, and he tweets like, "Wait, what the hell's going on?"
That's phenomenal.
You know what I mean? Like, and then it was just like, it was just a misunderstanding. It's like shit like that. Like, I know people like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know Amanda Palmer, but I know like the personality.
Yes,
and I've known people like that, and it's one of those things where it's hard for me to divorce from that because I have such bad memories of people like this, like who thrive on drama. Paul, she's one of those people who thrives on drama. She like gets into it on the comments on her Facebook shit and stuff like that. Big turnoff for me. So,
and I think when we get into the album and the lyrics of it, you can tell she's.
Oh yeah.
There's some things there, but yes,
like the line we'll get to, like leaving the box of condoms out to make somebody jealous of the guy's fuck before. I'm like, I think that's something you would have done, Amanda.
It's interesting. And for that Radiohead album, for those that are interested, it was called Amanda Palmer Performs the Popular Hits of Radiohead on Her Magical Ukulele.
Smug. That's smugness.
And now
it's when we get back to my my real like the chip on my shoulder when it comes to musicians and artists, Paul, is when the smugness gets too high.
And there's definitely smugness on this. So let's talk a little.
Yeah, we'll get into it, but it's not as much as her kind of persona outside of this.
Right. So the Dresden Dolls, Brian Vigilone, and I had made the mistake last week of, yes, Neil is her husband, not the member.
I corrected you at the end of that.
And thank you for that.
I waited till the very end.
Yeah, great. Thanks for waiting till the end, Joe, to make me look like an asshole for half the podcast.
Hey, you're on a roll, man. I didn't want to interrupt.
Fair enough. And I always come back and have to do corrections anyways, because my mouth spits out more than my brain gives time to process. So she had seen Brian perform solo at a Halloween party, and she was like, I got to do music with this guy. And they started doing live cult shows, and to the point where they were dramatic makeup, and they were very much this cabaret, and that's the style of this music. I think is dark cabaret is the genre that it falls under. And they would encourage fans early on to get involved, like do performance art during the show, like come in stilts. We want statues, fire breathers. And it became this whole performance art thing. And the band was originally called Out of Arms. And they changed it in the Dresden Doll. Now, according to Palmer, and we know this, history is always subjective. There's always one side, the other side, and the truth. But according to Palmer, it was inspired by a combination of things. The firebombing in Dresden, Germany.
So it goes, Paul.
So it goes. There was a song, the same name, by the band The Fall. They did a song called Dresden Dolls. in Flowers of the Attic, that book, the lead character, the boy and the girl were the Dresden Dolls. So she liked the parallel between Dresden, kind of again the firebombing, the destruction, and dolls being an innocent object. So it was like this juxtaposition, as it were, of things that she. So in 2005, they were the Dresden Dolls, and they were opening not for Nine Inch Nails. Could you imagine, Joe? You and I are big Nine Inch Nails fans. Could you see this band opening for Nine Inch Nails and it meshing?
I've seen stranger bands open for Nine Inch Nails. I saw Boris open for Nine Inch Nails. That's what got me into them. They're like a Japanese drone metal.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll do Boris at some point. But yeah, Reznor picks like pretty interesting people to open for him. So I would not have been too surprised, especially with the stage theatrics kind of thing and the the makeup. I mean, it's not too far from like the Marilyn Manson kind of, cake makeup and grotesque-ish live performances. So yeah, no, I can see that.
So by 2008, Dresden Dolls were done. They put out 3 albums. The Dresden Dolls, which is what got me into them. The song "Coin Operated Boy" was a big hit on indie at the time on college radio. There was a Cities 97 at the time before it became this pop thing. Was playing kind of indie songs before it fell into the they're called Clear Channel. Or got bought by Clear Channel and became out on the radio. Then they did this album, Yes, Virginia, and then they did No, Virginia, which was a compilation of songs that they wanted to do. But here's what happened. So Coin Operated Boy was actually a big hit for them. And their label was, Roadrunner label, was all in on it. And then they did this one, Yes, Virginia. There really wasn't a strong single, according to label, on this album. And the fact that the sales for it, for their first album, didn't have a single, didn't peak on any charts, sold dramatically more than their second album. And so very quickly, Roadrunner pulled the plug and was like, we are not supporting this album. You guys need to do another one. And Amanda, especially Amanda, was like, fuck you guys. And so they quickly put together a compilation to just do their 3-album contract, and they broke up. And Amanda went on to do her own thing. Brian went on to do his own thing. They recently, during the pandemic, got back together. And in 2019, they started touring, working on an album. Then the pandemic happened. They're still working on it. And they're going to do a world tour here in the next year or two and release that what would be considered their 3rd true album. So that's what's going on there with them. And we can get in again, you and I have talked about doing a podcast about labels at another time and to kind of give you guys an idea. There's been a lot of bands on Roadrunner, and Roadrunner is kind of notorious. I shouldn't say kind of, is notorious for sink or swim. With their artists, like either you make it or you don't, and if you do, we support. If you don't, you're gone. So we can do that, as it were. There's not a lot of bands currently signed with them anymore. They're not the prominent band, the label that they once. Thoughts on that, Joe? Anything you want to add? Take away?
Not really, no.
Okay, so let's jump into it. This is
albums that are front loaded with like good songs. This one's back loaded in that, for me, the most interesting songs come at the end of the album. Yes. But Sex Changes is a good opening track. You could probably make it today. I hate when people say you can't do shit these days or whatever, because you obviously can. Like, fuck, this song could be made today, just people would react.
People would react.
As they do,
I mean, we're pleased to inform you that your application's been accepted. Starting from this time you get this letter, hope you'll be, your life will be one of never ending. Hope you're feeling better. You get your choice of anesthetic. We need to chop your cock off. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, this song feels like it could have been in like Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know what I mean? Like just like the themes and all that, and just kind of like this grotesque. It's like, for me, what works on this album is when it is burlesque ish.
Yes.
And when it fails is when they stray from that.
Yep.
And there was another thing, is like I wish this album was a little more produced with a little more instrumentation.
It's a very bare bones, isn't it? And
yeah, when I think of cabaret and stuff, I think like, kind of a production going on, like a show, a ragtime jet, like little flourishes, I think would have helped this sound sonically a lot better.
I would agree with that. I still enjoy it, but I think you had the same thoughts I did. There was a couple of times when listening to the album, I'd be like, ooh, if you threw in like a violin there.
Yeah, or a harpsichord here.
Harpsichord. Exactly. Yeah. Another line that I think is really great. This, of course I love you, and of course it's what's inside that matters. But I think the whole charade is ending.
Yeah. You know what they say? Everything that comes before the word "but" is completely horseshit.
Exactly, sir. Yeah, there's some really interesting, and I think, given the fact that Amanda Palmer is only 4 years older than us, and this was recorded in 2008, I believe 2006. So, yeah, I think, like, there's some shit going on. Yeah, it was recorded in 2006, or released in 2006, or recorded in 2005. So, I mean, for her to be, 25, 26, writing lyrics like this, there definitely is
she'd be in her late 20s.
Yeah, 27. Yeah, I guess you're right, 27.
She'd be like 29 in 2005. 2006, yeah, she'd be 29. She's 4 years older than me.
Yeah, there you go. Fuck yes. Yeah, I try to think I'm younger than. Fuck. So yeah, she'd been in her late 20s at that point. So yeah, I think there's comparing this again to what we had last week. There is a world of talent when it comes to songwriting.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
And it's painting the story, right? Like you and I talked about, we like being able to. There was definitely imagery in my head coming when I listened to this song, and so that's a testament to it. Where lyrically and vocally, even though sonically and musically, it's. I don't want to say bare bones, but bare bones is, I think, the.
Yeah, this song sounds like it'd be on a stage musical, like in the vein of like Rocky Horror or Hedwig and the Angry Inch,
Yeah, great call on that. Absolutely agree with you. So next we have is a Backstabber, Joe.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that like went off the rails for me. I got real big pop punk Blink-182 vibes on this one.
See, and I had
melody wise, it was just so the stink of the late '90s, early 2000s pop punk melodies, and we'll get to it because there's a very egregious one coming up.
There is, for me now, and I want to separate this, right, because we're gonna have things funny. We talked about how you didn't feel that this was. That the last album could be Amanda Palmer, but at the same time, there's some grievances or some things that are going to be some similar treads we're going to be treading, which is things that sound like other things. And for me, this sounded like a Ben Folds 5 song, or a Ben Folds song.
Yep.
This has Ben Folds written all over it, just the way the keys are going, the notes, the way it goes. Like Ben Folds could have wrote the song. We're a point, again, this is conspiracy theory and conjecture, rumor and innuendo. I have nothing to go with it. The song Backstabber and the fact that it feels very much like a song right out of Ben Folds' playbook, I wonder if it was a jab at him. Like, I'm like, oh, I wonder if that was kind of the thing there. Kind of like when Tori Amos very subtly called out Trent Reznor for their affair on one of her albums.
An album he played on.
An album he played on, which is genius. So I kind of got that vibe. Like, I'm kind of like, I wonder if that's what's going on here. Like, if only those in the know or those that are paying attention, like a wrestling mark, would kind of catch that. But yeah, this just opening chords on the piano, everything, the chord structure itself just reeks of something Ben Folds would do.
But it also goes away from the cabaret stuff for me, and that's again like when they do like the cabaret stuff. Like I wish they kind of would have stuck to a theme instead of kind of like straying, especially in your second album.
Like stick with your genre. Yeah.
Well, like you can go out of it, but I mean, like you're presenting yourself as something, and then I get this, which is again, it's like, it sounds like parts of it sounds like it's off Dude Ranch by Blink-182. Like I'm trying, it's like it's stuff like that as it gets a little jarring for me, but for me, like on this album, when it shines, and when it doesn't, it really doesn't.
And see, for me, I thought it was like Fear of Pop from Ben Folds could be on that album. So that was my thought on it. But again, lyrics, there is some repeating again. She says backstabber over and over again. But it's really interesting. Like rotten like a crack whore, backing out the back door. Show us what you're good for. Post it to the noise board. Come on, join the blood sport. Show us some support. Working at the drugstore, it's because you're a fucking backstabber. And again, there's things in there where I'm like, there's Ben Folds kind of things, and I'm going, like, yeah, I just feel like this is like Ben Folds pissed her off. Like I'm convinced.
I'm just convinced she's inventing drama in her head and projecting it onto some poor son of a bitch who has to deal with it.
Next one is Modern Moonlight, Joe. What was your take on Modern Moonlight?
I like this because kind of went back to the cabaret stuff. Some of the lyrics didn't work for me. The Coke and Pepsi of whatever.
They found a compromise. Yeah.
Yeah, like, all right, here we go. But I do like when it goes back into the kind of the cabaret and jazzy kind of stuff. That's where it shines for me. But like I wasn't a fan of this one either.
Yeah, this one again. It's interesting. I like the beginning of it, like the build up for it, but then it doesn't really go anywhere per se.
Yeah, and then like the vocals again. Like if this would have been produced a little slicker, I think. Yeah. It would have like like the just a little more effort in that stuff. Like I think they could have like. With these songs, they could have created like a sonic kind of, circus environment audioly, but they stuck with bare bones, and so like a song like this just really suffers for it.
I would agree with that. Yeah, this definitely has like I love the fact that you brought up like a circus for it, because this song especially I think would have benefited from that. Lyrics, such as retinas are bleeding for the Enterprise, surgically wired into paradise. Yesterday, I dropped in at the MKB. Everyone was messaging like it was going out of style. It was just the cynic in me. God, I love communicating. I just hate the shit we're missing. Which is very reminiscent of where people were, I think, in 2008 in terms of there was a lot of pushback at the time. Now it is, but people were pushing back on the texting, messaging, on the fact that people, and there's this kind of this fear, and it's been founded yet unfounded in terms of were we going to be able to have people go out and friends aren't going to go out and meet each other and do things like that, and then we had COVID, which no one would have fucking survived if we didn't have it. So, take it for what it is. Like it's something that I've seen a lot of writers over the years and philosophers have concerns about. It's always this cycle of, especially science fiction writers, they dig so much into it that they get fearful of their own musings of what future science could be. So it is what it is. Alcoholic Friends, my alcoholic friends show.
Yeah, this is where it kind of gets back to me.
I like this.
Very cabaret-ish sounding. Yeah, this was a good one. I liked this. I think Amanda Palmer went through some shit, Paul.
I think Amanda Palmer went shit. I won't get into that in some of the other later, but she went through some shit. I'm trying hard not to be ashamed, not to know the name of who was waking up beside me, or the date, the season, or the city. But at least it's the feelings. At least the ceiling is very. And if you're holding it against me, I'll be on my best behavior, taking shots from Mother Nature. One fist is in my cupboard. Love is never falling over. I think we drank a lot. We partied hard in our youth. Yeah, she went through some shit. Talking about, bringing back the number of the beast, and A is for the address on the letter to my alcoholic friends. Very cabaret, very great. I loved her with this, and it's very interesting because if you listen to their first album, there was a youth on her voice, and I wonder if, to be taken a little bit more seriously, she took the Bob Dylan route, which is where Bob Dylan would notoriously sing in a way that made me think he was old. And there's parts in this song where I feel like it kind of comes through it when she gets to the usefulness. But really, when you listen to these lyrics, and you listen to these things, if you didn't know any better, you would think this was a woman in her late 30s singing this song. Would you? Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought
You're kind of cutting out here, Paul.
Am I cutting out? Oh, no.
Yeah.
You got to fix that. Is this, hang on. Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I just repeat myself there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, I think she took the route of possibly Bob Dylan, where Bob Dylan would purposefully sing in a way, especially like Lay Lady Lay, where he didn't want people, he was concerned about him being young and seriously. And I wonder if Amanda Palmer was going the same thing, where she's singing in a certain way, because on her first album, definitely a lot of the songs, you can hear the youth, her being, in her 20s. You just hear when they're younger, when they're, and in here, I feel like she kind of went and held her voice, or if you didn't know better and didn't know the band, you would think this is someone in their late 30s singing this song. There are parts where she hits certain notes where that youthfulness still. Get that, Joe?
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
Fair enough. It's just something for me that I kind of noticed. I just think it's part of the artistic part of the style, like the theatrical style of it. That she's definitely singing in a certain way that isn't falsetto or isn't like fake, but it definitely, you can feel that there's some manipulation of her voice to make her sound a certain way. I don't know. Does that? Maybe
I don't know if there was like studio manipulation. I don't know. She probably just changed her voice to evoke a different.
Yes, I don't think it's studio. I think it's her having control over her vocals. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think it's studio. I think it's literally her singing in that specific way to convey this particular protagonist of her songs. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Next is Delilah.
Okay, yeah, this is...
Okay, Joe, go for it. I'll let you start.
I hated this. This is the first out of 4 ballads on an album. And out of those 4, I only liked 1. So,
okay.
Not this one.
We have a huge disagreement on this one. This, to me, is one of the shining stars on this album. This should, to me, have been a single.
This was so boring, Paul. This was a slow, boring song.
I had the complete opposite. The lyrics, the storytelling, of what's going on had me hooked the whole way through. And the way that she was changing her voice, especially on the lyrical side of, and you thought you could change his mind by changing the perfume, switching your perfume to find his mother wore. God, Delilah, why? I've never met a more impossible girl. She goes to that very low, oh God, Delilah, why? And then goes to the high, I've never met a more impossible girl. There was something to that I just felt was like really, really well done. And then the song kicks in there with the piano, with the bass. And I don't know, like, I really enjoyed this song, especially telling the story, you know, of being 4 o'clock in the morning at Denny's on Route 1. And, you know, don't guess what he's done. Is that a fact, Delilah? And I really enjoyed it. I just think lyrically, it's a great song. It's a dark song that really fits that dark cabaret style. To me, I could definitely see this. So I personally adored this song to the point where it went on my playlist. That's me.
Not for me. It's did not. Again, it didn't feel like cabaret to me. It didn't feel it. It just halted the album down to a just ground it to a halt, and I just wasn't. I don't think I was as impressed with it as you are, but that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have differences. Yeah, to me, this was like a shining jewel on the album. To me, I like this. It's been in my head since we started doing this, and I mean, I've heard this years ago, but hearing it again, I was just like, oh my God, I forgot how the song was. So then we moved, and then it jumps right into another fast song with Dirty Business. Joe, tell us about your Dirty Business.
Well, on this particular song, Paul, I think Amanda Palmer was in too deep, and she's trying to keep her head up above in her head instead of going under. This song was fucking Sum 41.
It was Sum 41.
Sum 41's in too deep, god damn it. So this was like, I was like really like, so this song I liked a lot, and I was like, man, this like melody, this chorus sounds like really good, and like, why does it sound so familiar? And I was just racking my head for a week trying to figure out like what song. I went on Reddit to see it, and like I just had like a vague idea of the song, and it wasn't there. And then I was just like, what is it? What is it? You know? And then it clicked, because in the summer of 2001, you couldn't escape that Sum 41 song.
Oh.
So it's permanently burned in my brain. So like when they're using that melody, I was just like, son of a bitch.
Yeah,
it's still, I like the song. It's just that familiarity. It's just one of those things, like when I hear a song and it sounds like another song, I get really obsessive, and I have to find out what that other song is.
100%. Yeah,
that's how I am. So I'll that's why I do that on these. Like if I hear, like when we talked about Dan Marison ripping off and Stevie Wonder, you know.
Joe, I'm the same way. That's why, again, like, it was so funny last album when you were like, hey, I'm hearing this song, I'm hearing this band, I'm hearing this band, I'm hearing this band, and I'm going, I'm hearing this band, I'm hearing this band, I'm hearing this band. You know, we both do the same thing because I have to find it. And there was a familiarity to it. Funny you caught it. I just assumed it was because I heard the album back in 2018, 2008, 2000.
Yeah, it is just like, I don't think they... Oh, I'm going to rip that. I think that song was everywhere. It might have been through osmosis. It just came out. Like, again, you only have so many chords in a song to use, and melodies. So it always happens. This shit always happens. So I rarely, unless it's very egregious, I rarely think they're ripping off another band. I just think it just happens.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about the lyrics here. She's the kind of girl who gets her slinging arrows from the dumpster. She's the kind who tells her she's bipolar just to make you trust her. She's the kind of girl who leaves out condoms on the bedroom dresser just to make you jealous of all the men she fucked before you met her.
Yes, I know this person.
We know that person. Yeah, we all know that person.
We've all met that person. It's yeah.
Yep.
No, it's again, that's that shock of recognition. I'm just like, you're not talking about another person, Amanda. You're talking about yourself. You did that yourself. That's too specific to be about a friend you just happen to know.
Yeah, well, and then you get to the bridge there. To all the ones who thought they knew me, best attest to prove your prowess. Who was mine in '99? I want last names and current status. To all the ones who hated me the most, a toast you really had me going for a second. I was nervous, boy, am I the poster girl. Yeah, she's talking about herself.
That's fine again, but when you're on the bad end of a person like that, it's like, I don't like using the words triggering, but it was fucking triggering, Paul.
Joe, I know where you're coming from. I was in a very similar situation. It was triggering. I was like, oh my God, I know.
Just like son of a bitch. God damn it, Gilmer.
God damn it, Gilmer. You
I bet David Gilmer discovered this woman.
Gilmer, are you the culprit again, Gilmer?
God damn Gilmer.
Son of a bitch, Gilmer. Joe, you were telling me earlier at the beginning of the podcast about your first orgasm. Go on, sir.
So again, this is ballad number 2 out of 4 on an album of 13 songs. This is not the one I really liked. I did like some of the imagery on here. Some of it's kind of disturbing when she's talking about basically rubbing one out and hearing school children running around outside.
Yeah.
It's just again, it's like this was another like I liked Delia better than this, but this also felt like a meandering song.
It does, and again, it's interesting to me. Like I for some reason, I'm really going towards these two ballads as again high points on the album for me. This is the most depressing song about masturbation I've ever heard. If you listen to the song,
oh, I'm sure Gigi Allen has one for you, Paul.
Okay, maybe, but
I'm sure Gore might have one too.
Well, that's disturbing. This is depressing.
It could be two things.
It can be two things. Like the vinyls, I touched myself. This is not. But, Shebop. This is not. This is like I really again enjoy the imagery. Like when I listen to this song, I picture her in like a New York loft, with like white, archways and like a round windows. The big windows, old like a 1900s apartment. The wood floors, fucking radiators for heat. Just this kind of this suppressing situation. Like there really is a lot of imagery for me. Just the empty, massive apartment person in it.
But for me, you can have interesting imagery, but if the song still is uninteresting musically, which this is for me, I don't know, because we're going from cabaret, and all of a sudden she's trying to do this Tom Waitsy. Very Tom Waitsy-ish.
Very Tom Waitsy.
Let's call a spade a spade. It's very. I don't know if she's influenced, but it very vibe this song and Delia, and as we get on, it's like very much like Christmas card from a hooker in Minneapolis kind of thing. Like very good imagery, but like if that's not the whole album, that's not the vibe you're going for. It really creates a jarring stop. That's my complaint with these songs. We're going from cabaret to all of a sudden, I'm getting sad about the clown who jerked off on Hennepin and Fifth.
God, you just reminded me of Patton Oswalt on that one.
Yeah, the little clown. What's the prop comic?
Yeah, I got the friend packing up the suitcase.
Yeah, but
you know,
interesting though. After this song, the next slew of songs, minus one, to me are my favorites on the album. Like, I think that's why I call it back-ended heavy, because the best songs are after track 7.
Yeah, and I think, there's two things we should really address right now before we go further. Is, yes, I think there's a sequencing issue on it. Absolutely. This album was not sequenced very well. Whoever did the sequencing on it did it no favors. I do like First Orgasm. I think maybe had it been on their first album or on No Virginia, maybe have a different impact. I personally, the lyrics on it, I really love it. Like, the first orgasm in the morning is like a fire drill. It's nice to have a little warning, but it's not enjoyable. I am too busy to have friends. I'll never complicate my plans, so I'll never look again. I'm taking matters into my own hand. I think I could last a week without someone to hold. Like, I really enjoy that kind of imagery. Of it, really. Like, not that I enjoy depressing, but I think it's like, this is a song I think I grabbed onto back in 2006 when I was going through shit myself and going through a horrible breakup and things like that. So maybe that's why I really enjoy this song a little bit too. The other thing that I think listeners, and I want to address it now because, well, it's in my head, is you notice how we're bringing up, just like we did the last album, Ben Folds, Sem 41, Tom Waits. And you're going, well, you guys are giving this a pass versus Porridge Radio. The reason why is because with Porridge Radio, those people were doing it better and I didn't want to hear it. But here, you can hear it, but it's still done well enough that it stands on its own. It doesn't make me want to go and listen to the
obvious influences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not obvious influences. It's Porridge Radio is like, you hear the obvious influences. Here, it's just like, the influence is like, it's there, but I don't think it's intentional.
Right. And not only is it not intentional, but again, the songs are strong that they stand on their own. Where with Porridge Radio, I forget which song it was over there, where there was the obvious Modest Mouse guitar. Very obvious Modest Mouse guitar in the beginning, and it's gone. Rest of the song, it's no longer there. It's just in the beginning. We're going to do this, and all it made me do is go, God, I really wish I was listening to Modest Mouse right now. I still like Tom Waits, but it didn't make me want to go, man, I want to listen to Tom Waits song. No, I want to finish and listen to this song. So I think those are the two differences there that we really need to address as we're creating it. Or, hey, how come you're giving this one a pass and that one a pass? Same thing. Listen, son of a bitch, it's subjective in nature. So,
because Porridge Radio is one of the worst albums I've ever heard that Paul, for some reason, recommended, despite he shat on it for about an hour and a half.
Again, I stand by the fact that there were interesting tracks on there.
It's fine. It's fine, man. It's your opinion. It's your recommendation.
It's my opinion, Joe. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the song. I loved the depressing. I loved it. I think, again, it fit that dark. Like, I could see this being, and I think it belongs in terms of, like, bringing it down. But again, 4 ballads. You're right on the path of 4 ballads on this album.
Yeah, 4 ballads, and they don't really fit. Like, these. The weird thing is, minus the one ballad I like, the 3 ballads on here feel like they should have been on a completely different album.
I can get behind that. I can absolutely get behind that. Like I said,
and that's why it's for me, it's just like it didn't really work for me. Like, maybe if I heard it in a different context of like, here's a bunch of sad piano ballads by Amanda Palmer, that'd be a different thing, and then I could judge it on that basis instead of here's Dark Cabaret, but here's Tom Waits singing.
Yes, and again, I also think a sequencing thing. I think there's 2 things that are really hurting the ballads on this one. I do think they are good ballads. I think Delilah is a great ballad. I think Sorgasm is a great ballad. The things that are hurting it is, first of all, again, sonically, it's not having the highs and lows like you would say like a Radiohead album, right? Where it's sonically gorgeous. And you have these things where it's taking you very smoothly on these peaks and valleys throughout the album. There's peaks and valleys here. The problem is the valleys are really low, but the peaks sonically aren't reaching the heights that I think match the lows of the ballad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the sonically, I feel like, again, if they put more instrumentation, more into the theme of cabaret, it would have, I think, been a lot more solid album. Again, more instrumentation, more jazzy, old timey, whatever, but when it's, at times it's like, man, sounds like a demo for a better song. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear the produced version of this.
Sure, and I can see exactly where you're. I think it's a very valid.
Maybe like, maybe like a darker version of Benefit of Mr. Kite from the Beatles kind of thing. Like you have all this kind of weird shit. Like I think that would have made this album really fucking rad. It's still, I like it. It's just I feel like it could have been more.
Sure, and I will completely concede and say yes, you're completely valid, and I would agree with you on that. So next we get Mrs. O. Now there was a band that this reminded me of as well, but Joe, let's hear your thoughts on Mrs.
Oh, I like this song. This is like when the album actually starts working for me.
I like this. I like this song.
There's no, what was it, like, there's no Hitler, there's no Holocaust, there's no Santa, yes, Virginia. Like, I love that that play with words a lot. So, like, to me, this is probably my favorite song on the album.
It's a great song, and it
weirdly, between this and Sex Changes. Sex Changes is a fantastic fucking song. That's going on a mix, Paul.
Yeah, it's on a mix. Yeah, that is on a mix. It has such a great opener. To me, I love it lyrically, and it's so playful. It reminds me, as you were talking about the word, of, again, it's not a ripoff. It's not an homage. This has the playfulness that I hear with They Might Be Giants lyrically, and I absolutely am here for it. I love it.
Yeah, it's very playful, darker themes, kind of, I think it's a good balance. That's why I like this song. It's my favorite on the album because it just has like so many cool things going on for it. Again, like for me, Mrs. O is where the album really kickstarts for me. Like if these following songs followed Sex Changes, top heavy, yes, but I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more than I did.
Yeah, again, sequencing is a big problem with this album. I'm going to completely agree with you on that. And again, I go back, like the lyrics, "Oh, Mrs. O, will you tell us where the naughty children go? Will you show how the sky turned white and everybody froze? Heaven knows how they got to the fireplace, but everyone's saying grace and trying to keep a happy face." Like, I could totally, that should be lyrics straight out of a They Might Be Giants song, like 100%. But it's done well here, and there's no Hitler, there's no Holocaust, no winter, no Santa Claus, and yes, Virginia, all because the truth can't save you now. The sky is falling.
Yeah, it's the end of the world.
Yeah, it's the end of the world. It's
a very nihilistic song with like kind of hope in it. I like that. It's a playful song.
Yeah,
playful, dark song, and I think this is where I think them as a band shines. Like we can go back to like her ballads, but it doesn't really make it as a group shine. But this does. Like has more of a fuller sound to it for me.
Yes, I will say Delilah and First Orgasm, definitely those feel like Amanda Palmer solo songs. They don't feel like very, very. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. Next, we got Shores of California, Joe. I really like this.
Yeah, this should have been the single.
Yeah, I completely agree.
This is a single. I liked it, even though, again, like I'm hearing, I got the weirdest, but it does have hints of "Do It Again" by Steely Dan.
Oh, sure. Shit, yeah.
like, I'm unapologetically, I love that first Steely Dan album. So, like, I heard like that, and I really like this song a lot.
Yeah,
because it's also very different. But this is one of those times on this album where it strays. It works for me.
Yeah, Yeah, well, I
It's a
mean,
very different song from like the cabaret stuff, and then like the sad piano ballad stuff. Like this is like one of those weird. Musically, it's different too because it has
oh yeah, it's very
a
musical.
more modern vibe, I would say, as opposed to kind of like the throwback things they were doing before.
I completely agree. Yeah, this is like a breath of fresh air on the album.
Yeah,
This was definitely needed, and I think this should have probably been like again maybe song number 3. In my opinion. I mean,
yeah,
and again, the lyrics on it are so good. That's the way it is in Minnesota. That's the way it is in Oklahoma. That's the way it's been since Pessoa first climbed on the shores of California, and she's been trying with limited success to get him out and dance. It was like any girl, all she really wants is that fickle little bitch romance. It's like,
yeah.
wow, yeah, yeah. So and why are these conflicting specifications? Maybe to prevent overpopulation. All I know is that all around the nation, the masturbating. Like, wow, she's bringing up the Iliad and it's so interesting. I love it. Yeah, it's very intelligent in my mind, so yeah, I really enjoy the story she's telling. Necessary Evil. I enjoyed this one as well.
This is where this is where I get frustrated with this album because I love this song. If you listen to like how it's produced, she has like an effect on her vocals.
Yep.
Make it sound like she's out of a megaphone type of thing, right?
Yes, it does.
That should have been used on other songs. This was like this song shows like what the other songs could have been with a little more production to it, and that's why it gets frustrating for me. I'm like, I love this song. This song is awesome, and like they should have done more of this with like the sounds on the other songs.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Again, there is. I have to assume that there was something going on between the band label and the. Again, a band. I know Roadrunner wasn't. It is a sink and swim thing, but I feel like that maybe they didn't give them a whole lot to work with in the thing. Rushing going on in the studio. Was there something going on with the band was the timeline between when they needed to get this done? Because the album came out 2 years later. So were these songs all kind of written on the fly and they weren't really allowed time to breathe when Roadrunner like get your fucking second album out? There was something that happened in the background that caused this way that it is. I really believe that. And this song, as you said, so glad we're on the same page on this one, really points out what could have been on the album. Again, lyrically, it's all there. Lyrically, it's well done. Musically is where I just something going on. Was there something going on between Anna and Brian? I don't know. But you get lyrics like, I've connected speakers to my suitors at the discotheques, and the difference, are they men or are they Memorex? If you find yourself without me, if you find yourself without me, come on, find yourself without me, come on. There is, it's such an interesting song. Yep. Next one is Mandy Goes to Med School, Joe.
Again, this is I like this because it goes back to the cabaret. Feels like the spiritual cousin to Sex Changes.
It really does. Yeah.
Like these two songs feel like they're from a musical that was never produced that should have been.
Yeah, I want to see that musical. Right?
I feel like there was a concept here that kind of got fucked up.
I want to see. I want the musical. Mandy Goes to Med School and does Sex Changes. Give me that musical.
Well, if you pay $49.99 a month to her Amanda Palmer's Patreon, you'll get you probably hear demos for all these other songs from that abandoned.
Yeah, we'll get to the aftermath about some of that shit afterwards. Fuck. I have thoughts. I have thoughts. I
have thoughts on Patreon. We'll get to it, but yeah, I like this song a lot. I did.
Yeah. Yes, I can do everything you need out of my new SB. All my work is guaranteed to the length recovery. put away those pliers, honey. Trust me, because I know options. How about a 9-month-long vacation and 2-foot coffin? Wow. Wow. I mean, we're treading into some territory here. I want this musical.
Yeah, I do too.
I really like that one. Next, we get Me and the Minibar. Joe, tell me about Me.
Now, this is ballad number 3 out of 4, Paul.
Yes.
And since there's only one other song after that, which is another ballad, this also didn't work for me, Paul.
This, thank God, because I thought it was going to be this one when you said you like the ballad. I do not.
No, I like Sing a Lot. I think that works. But Me and the Minibar,
this should not be on the album.
So we're getting to I think she's hovering too close to the Tom Waits on this now, a bit.
Yeah.
You know, the guy very much Bukowski-esque lyrics, at least in like his 70s and into 80s stuff. So yeah, this slowed it down for me. And of the last, from track 8 to 13, this is the one that I really don't care for.
I do not like the song. I don't. I think lyrically it works. I shouldn't say I don't like the song. I don't like it where it's at sequencing. I don't like it.
Putting a ballad before another ballad, Paul.
Yeah. Like I said, the sequencing is
maybe just make it a 12-track album at this point.
Again, they did the No Virginia compilation, and I feel like this one should have maybe got on that No Virginia compilation. Again, lyrically, there is some interesting things there, but you got the it's very Tom Waits-esque, and I'm going to do it in a Tom Waits here. Candles from the Walmart. Every city's got the hell that I bought last night. I was so excited to do such normal things with you. When you left last night with your toothbrush dry. Yeah, it's very Tom Waits.
Very Tom Waits.
Very Tom Waits. But I enjoy it, but it's in the wrong, really bad spot on the album.
Yeah, it's like probably the worst spot they could have thrown. Put this song on.
Yeah. I think that's really my issue with it. I think again, had it been elsewhere on the album or on an album, I would enjoy it. I really do think I would enjoy it. It is a good song, but where it's at against everything, like again, as you said earlier, you put this on a mix of piano, ballads and songs. I hear it, I'm gonna go, oh man, I really like that song. But right after, and he goes to med school to Me and the Minibar, who made that decision needs to be fired. And finally, Joey gets Sing, which was the single on the album.
Which is the 4th ballad on an album of 13 songs, and the one I did like. This was a good single. Probably just, this is a band that's not going to have a hit single. That's just what it is.
They had one on their last album, but yes. Go on.
Oh, it was on Top 40 Radio?
Like I said, it was on Cities 97, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it was Coin Operated Boy. If you look up after this thing, I know that song. It was played. Yeah, Coin Operated Boy.
Yeah, no. This was a good song, though. Sing.
Yeah, this was a great
I liked it a lot, although it's like, the sing for the whatever, sing for the... It just... another unintentional... But this one I don't think was an intentional, because this movie came out afterwards, but I just kept thinking of in Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, when he's singing for the midgets.
See, I
stand for the little man.
I got visions, honestly. I was like, oh, this is very lyrically Aerosmith-esque. Let's sing for the bartender, sing for the janitor, sing for the cameras, sing for the animals. Yeah.
But sing for the little person who can't reach the elevator buttons, Paul.
Yeah, God bless them and the hard life they walk, sir.
Go away, Dewey. You don't want no part of this.
You don't want no part of this, Dewey. Am I going to get addicted? It's not habit forming.
The cheapest drug there is.
You can't get addicted, Dewey. Let's see. So
Oh, it must be expensive. It's the cheapest drug ever.
I do enjoy the song. Now, I do
Yep.
think people. I think what really doomed the album, and I compare it to what happened with Filter when Take My Picture came out, and people are like, "What the fuck is this?" And that was the single, and the rest of the album sounds nothing like it at all. Had this track that has this Radiohead-esque guitar, acoustic guitar to it. That's not on any of the other tracks.
Yep. No.
You know, it's very different than, again, on 13 tracks, there's 4 ballads. Sure, I'll give you that, but there's 9 cabaret songs. This did not.
But they're a dark cabaret band. They should be cabaret songs.
Exactly. And yet you picked this one to be the single, which I think is the most misleading thing.
Yeah, it's
studio could have done.
Very misleading.
Yeah. The fact that that Roadrunner said this is going to be the single on this album, I could honestly see right away where Amanda and Brian would be like, "The fuck are you doing?" No.
But I can also see from their point of view, the labels. This is the most, besides Shores of California, this is the most commercially sounding song on the album.
And it is the most commercially sounding song on the album. And it, yeah, I again, I like it. I enjoy it. I just don't think it should have been the single, but I can see sides of it. But I personally, if I was the super album and this, like, feel like, yeah, we could put it out there. But again, it didn't, I think, did the album any favors because people bought the album, checked out the album thinking things are going to sound like this, and they got fucking Sex Changes and Andy Goes to Med School, and like, what the fuck am I listening to now? So I think it did them no service. Like, yeah. Which again brings your point of should have been on this album. Should not have been maybe on a different album. But regardless.
Yeah, this probably, I like the song a lot of all the ballads, but yeah, this probably could have been on the other No Virginia or whatever.
Yeah. So, and again, I mean, it's very, I mean, the lyrics are still good, but nothing, outrageous. However, thing for the president terrorists, but you got things like there's this thing that's keeping everyone lungs and lips locked. It's called fear, and it's seeing a great renaissance. After the show, you cannot sing wherever you want, but for now, let's all pretend we're bombed. So sing. Like, wow! Even in this song where there's some of the thing, say it's obvious, sing for the astronauts, that type of thing. Where there's this thing, but the point is that there's still, even in a song like this, these really deep lyrics that they're getting into that permeate the whole album, and I think are part of what elevates the album. That's my thought, Joe.
Yeah, no, it's my of the 4 ballads. It's the one I like. The one I like. So yeah, it's cheesy at times, sure, but at least I liked it. So whatever.
Yeah. So there it is. So as I already talked about, after this came out, the album did not sell well. Sold about 19,000 copies. Right away, the labels, Roadrunner saw what was the writing on the wall with the album, that we're not even going to bother supporting it. Just go out there and make us our 3rd album, which again led to a massive rift between Amanda, Brian, and the studio. And they took what was called a hiatus, which they didn't get back together for many, many years. Amanda put out an album called Who Killed Amanda Palmer, as she was a Twin Peaks fan, which is what it is. So yeah, the hiatus happened in 2008 when they just dropped basically it was a companion album featuring music and lyrics from Yes Virginia, No Virginia, and like they said, peace out, fuck you, Roadrunner. Didn't do well. So let's get to the controversy of that is Amanda Palmer. We can talk about kind of the Kickstarter thing. That Joe, go ahead and you start with your thoughts. Then I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of what the Kickstarter content.
No, I mean you can go ahead. Like I think I already said, it's just like I got sick of her pretty quick on social media. Everything's selling her Patreon, which is just like, I mean, I don't think she's a millionaire, but she is married to Neil Gaiman, so it's not like she's poor.
Yep.
The fact that she wanted to pay her touring band, with hugs and kisses, was very horrible. Yeah, she just rubs me the wrong way, Paul. There's something just not up to snuff with the old Amanda Palmer.
Yeah. There's something there. There's definitely some issues there, right? We had a rough life. I'm not going to sit here in armchair psychoanalyze. He's a fucking adult. We've all been there. We all have our baggage. It's just, when you're famous and you're in that situation, this is downside to, the age of what social media is, right? The Kickstarter. So let's talk a little bit about this, because you and I don't do a Patreon for this podcast, for any of the stuff that we've done.
No.
And I think you and I have very similar thoughts on Patreon in terms of, go ahead on your thoughts on Patreon.
Well, Patreon, okay, so if you think it's worth what you're paying, and that's fine. I have no beef with that or whatever. I just think artists like Amanda Palmer are fleecing their fans. Honestly, I think Patreon is such a fucking scam, Paul. In my opinion, I won't put that on the Joe Down website. I won't. Whatever, just because we do this for fun. It's just Patreon, and especially that Kickstarter thing. I think that was bad because it was just, you're asking people to pay to record your album.
Yeah, and to tour.
And then you sometimes you do that, and then you still have to pay to buy the album, which is horseshit.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that all the time, but I've seen it. It's just, you shouldn't be putting the financing of your art like that onto your fan base. I do not like that.
So
if you can't afford a touring band, if you can't afford to pay a touring band, then maybe you shouldn't be touring.
Yeah,
obviously you're not as successful as you think you are if you can't pay the people to make the music that you play with. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. So there's been a lot of takes on this one. I'm going to kind of just paraphrase some of this, and this was taken from Jess Condent from Engadget, and their article titled "The Crowdfunded Cult of Amanda." They say you don't set Kickstarter and Patreon records without genuine connection and conscience. And it's basically says Amanda Palmer did not exist in her current form back in 2009 without Patreon. There was this whole thing where she gets, he has 15,000 individuals on her Patreon, ranging from $1 to $100 on her Patreon. Now, again, Amanda Palmer, very successful, a lot of money. Again, she's married to Neil. A hugely successful comic series, and is now a Netflix series, and well beloved, tie-ins with comic industry, DC. Sure. It really, a lot of people, I'm with you on this one, right? Where I think Patreon and Kickstarters and like that are good for certain things, right? Like, if you and I were doing, say, 5 different podcasts, and we were spending 5 days a week recording shit, I would legitimately say to you, Joe, we should really look at maybe doing a Patreon spending every day. This is becoming a real job for us. So we need to make some ad revenue. We need to make some things, and we can throw some merch out there and kind of build a fan base and things. But that's not the case. We do this maybe once a week. Sometimes we breaks here and there. Something that's breaking back, and we do it. Love what we do. Right? I love talking about the albums. I love talking with you. But to have Amanda Palmer then not only get all these things per month, but then to say, hey, I'm going to create this thing where I'm going to bring other people in, we're going to and then when we go on tour, rather than me paying a touring band, I'm going to let fans submit themselves, and I'm going to critique them, and basically they're going to interview for me. They're going to play 1 or 2 nights at this location, and I'm going to pay them in beer, hugs, and thank yous. Fuck you. You are a multi-millionaire. You're taking advantage of your fan base at that point. And I have a huge problem. I really do.
Yeah, because she's taking the bigger payday from these shows, so she doesn't have to pay people.
Yeah, and
that's just gross to me.
That Kickstarter that she wanted was $100,000. She knew damn well she was going to get more than that, given where she was at, and she got 1.2 million.
Fuck her
on Kickstarter. And again, she didn't offer money to the performers and said she'd fill them in beer and give them hugs. And I get it. Like, there's this whole thing where people were like, but this is communism, this is going to go and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think capitalism is where we're at. Unfettered capitalism is great. But also, if you're using that capitalism to take money from your fans, and then you're going to turn around, have them do a job that you paid, have them pay you so you could go do, and then you're going to pay them in beer and hugs, you're not playing the same rules.
She's even rules. Further into the darker side of capitalism, honestly.
Right. That is the whole I take, you give, cult, as they talk about, the crowdfunded cult. And I don't agree with that. And now, again, if she were to say, hey, look, I'm hopping in a van, I'm going to do a bunch of small clubs, I'm going to do a bunch of free shows to drum up support. I'm going to sell, while I'm there, I'm going to sell albums, I'm going to sell merchandise, and, I need people to come out, and I'm funding myself to drive to these parks and these places and set up these really small club tours, and I need your support. I want to connect with my fan. That's a different story. I'd be all for that. But the fact that, again, she raised $1.2 million to do this, and then turns around and goes, thanks for the money, I'm going to pay you in beer for fucking doing a job, after you probably paid me on that Kickstarter. So really,
and she probably she's probably stingy with that beer too. It's probably like 1 beer.
Yeah, she's not buying you a fucking keg. It's like, hey, thanks. Here, $9 beer night. Have one. Because I got to save that $1.2 million. And she does things like, I don't think of my 15,000 Patreons as strangers, and I don't think of my 1 million of Twitter followers as strangers. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, because they are.
Yeah.
They're absolutely strangers. It's a one-sided relationship.
I have 2,700 friends on Facebook. Okay? Do I look at those 2,700 people as my friends? No. Some I've never spoken with. Some I've never even seen anything they post. So how can I sit there and be disingenuous to our audience and to the people and be like, hey, you know what? Sorry. I mean, and I don't mean this to like bash fans. We gotta. People need to start being real about social media and what it is. Look, if you like this podcast and you love it, by all means, please and thank you. We love doing it. But Joe and I aren't going to ask you for money for doing it. There's been things where people brought up, like the T-shirt that was made for you, and I've had friends and family go, "Man, you guys should really sell that on a website." And I go, I know.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the business of selling, and it kind of it takes away from things.
And plus, it's a big pain in the ass too. First, we have to come to the capital to make the shirts, and then we have to it's such a I mean, people wanted a shirt. We could probably look into it and be like, all right, whatever. But like, fucking mass produce that shit? Fuck no. That's a full-time job when you start making merch.
Yeah, it's a full-time job when you start making merch, and then you get caught in the cycle. Do we crowdfund to get money to get the merch? So now we're taking money from, and I have a huge problem with this.
And I would never do that. If we couldn't afford to make shirts to sell, which we can't.
Yep.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
We don't have the money to do that.
No.
I would never ask our listeners to pay so we can create merch to sell them.
That's
you know what I mean?
exactly
Like,
it.
so we're taking that money, then we're going to turn around
twice.
like, you're paying for it twice.
Yeah, you're paying for it twice, and that's the part that I can't agree with, Joe. You and I are on the same page on that 100%, because that's like, again, versus what it'd be is, okay, let's crowdfund, send us some money, and we'll give you merch for the crowdfunding, but we're not going to sell the shirts. That's a different story. A different story. But again, if we're going to go, okay, you're going to crowd first, we can start making shirts and mugs and things like that. Sure, pay us $10 and then turn around and pay us $15 for the $10 you already paid us to buy the $15 mug. I mean, come on. I have supported 2 Kickstarters in my life. The very first one I did as a joke because it got me an IMDb page. I have an IMDb page as an executive producer of a shitty movie that I am very excited to get my hands on. I still don't have the movie, and I paid.
Well, that's been like 3 or 4 years now, Paul.
It's been 3 or 4 years, and the movie's still not.
I think you got scammed.
Gee, do you think? But again, I knew going in that this was a joke, that I was willing to spend that money and go, I'm going to lose it, right? And that movie was never going to be great. That movie was never going to be amazing. I may never see that movie. But for me, I did it as a laugh because at the time I was doing, it was a decision I made. The other one I supported was Mystery Science Theater, the first run, because I really wanted to see that come back. And then they've done like 2 or 3 Kickstarters since. And I'm, nope, you got my money the first time. It's your fault. If it's not working out, you can go get studio backing at this.
And here's the thing. That first Kickstarter from ST3K, it ended up being distributed by Netflix. So fans paid for something that Netflix made money off of, and they had no investment in.
Exactly. Which goes against the spirit of what Kickstarter is supposed to do, right? That's the whole thing. It's supposed to be this independent thing, but as we've seen with a lot of Kickstarters, is there's other things going in the background where a lot of these things become mainstream, which is good. But then if that's the point anyways, and you're going to get this other investment, why did you need the Kickstarter? Why didn't you just do a petition? Why did you need to have people send you money to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And why didn't you give the fans back their money once Netflix paid you for more than what?
Yeah, so they could put it on their site.
Right. So, and then again, that's been my biggest issue with Kickstarter is I look at it, it's no different to me than like really shady microtransactions in mobile. I think there's a lot of comparisons that there. And so that's something that I personally, my values don't with. So yeah, that's why we don't do it. There's a lot of things I've done. I was like, hey, I'm never going to ask you for a dime for what I'm, keep that in mind. Yeah. So I like the fact that, it does kind of keep it, I think, more open and engaging on what you can do. I think once we merchandise and Kickstarter, you start to get this Anna Palmer situation going. It starts to become a problem.
Yeah. She got called out for it,
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. But all that said, Joe, you and I have been really good, I think, over the being able to separate the artist from the art and that type of thing. Looking at the Dresden Dolls 2006 Yes, Virginia album, would you recommend it?
Well, I liked it all except for the 3 songs. So I'm going to pull what you did last week, and I'm going to say no.
Interesting. Very
Because, I'm an enigma now. Since you broke all the rules for shitting on an album, I'm going to praise an album, say how much I like it, and then be like, you know what? No, I'm not recommending this. Nothing makes sense anymore, Paul. This is what you did.
Oh my god. I love how you gaslight the fuck out of me on these things. So I'll take that as you do like the album. I do as
well.
But
I can't recommend it. I can't recommend it.
I'm going to give you kind of a thing that I can say where I could see, again, one of the things that there are some flaws on it, some warts sonically. Is it dark cabaret enough, right? That being said, I do really like some of the songs on even the picture of it. I think even calling it a dark cabaret, I don't know if it really fits that genre very well. Indie piano album, I think at best would be a better terminology for it that has cabaret-like elements. I absolutely am going to recommend. I do enjoy the Dresden 3 of their album. And I kept bringing the last album as like the counter to Porridge Radio, and it just so happened you had one of 3 choices, and this is landed on. So yeah, I'm going to say absolutely check it out. You and I disagreed on some of the tracks like Delilah and Last Orgasm. I really enjoyed those. Sing for sure is one that they check in new. Manny and the sex changes, and Manny and the Med School. There's some really interesting tracks out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fantastic album. I just can't recommend it, Paul.
Okay, fair enough, Jeff.
It's 90% really awesome, Paul, but I'm not going to recommend it.
Damn it, Joe. God. Again, I had my reasons. I really do.
I have my reasons too, Paul. Those 3 songs just took me out of it.
Oh my God. All right, Joe, what are we doing next week, you son of a bitch?
Oh, Paul. As you know, it's October.
Yes, sir, it is October.
So that means it's Halloween month. And I'm going to pick, it's going to be basically 2 albums because they're relatively short.
Okay.
From the same band.
Oh, okay.
2 different lineups.
I think I know where we're going with this.
We're going with the Misfits, Paul.
Yes, we are.
We're going to be doing Static Age, fronted by our favorite Dan Marison.
Dan Marison, yes, sir.
And then we're going to try out Famous Monsters, fronted by Michael Graves years after Dan Marison left the Misfits. So yeah, we're going to be doing a twofer with the Misfits.
And
because it's Halloween.
Side note, I believe when they were the lineup of Famous Monsters, they were also prominent on one WCW, sir.
Oh, you got that straight, Paul.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
That was Jerry Only and his brother Doyle von Frankenstein.
Yes, Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein. Yep.
So it's Jerry Only and Doyle were in WCW briefly. I don't think they were there for too long.
I think they were there for a year. I think it was a year-long contract. Pretty sure that's what that was. I remember them debuting on that. Yep. Yeah, the Misfits in Action is what they were. Yep. In 2000. And they had the shortest reign of the WCW World Tag Team title. Yep. Yes.
WCW, Paul.
Hey, man.
Wasn't that the wrestling program where that Arquette fella had the world championship?
Yes, it was.
David Arquette.
Yes.
And for the promotion for Ready to Rumble.
Yes. Yep, Ready to Rumble.
Some wrestling fans have never forgiven him for that, Paul.
He never should have had the world title belt, but that's me. Let's also not forget that ICP also wrestled in WCW as well. So there was some
ICP
time-
also had its own wrestling.
still does. They still do that. Yep.
Juggalo wrestling, whatever.
Juggalo wrestling. No, it's what is it? World. Shit, I forget what it's called. The JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling.
Something like that. Yeah. That's entertaining.
Yes, but no, it was 1999. Misfits in Action was a different thing. The Misfits were in 1999. It was about a year. And they hung around with Vampiro, who also formed a stable with ICP as well. So, really, yeah.
Wrestling in the 90s was weird.
You can't do that. But yeah, no, that was that lineup. Oh, dude, this is great. Halloween month is my picks for. I'm excited for this. So this will be a really interesting look at because Static Age is a great album. I'm not really familiar with Famous Monsters. I have a feeling going real bad.
We'll find out, Paul. We'll find out. We're gonna fuck around. We're gonna find out.
We're gonna fuck around and find out. Fantastic. Oh, good old Dan Marison. All right,
Dan Marison.
Dan Marison, who's hanging out with Gilmer. So
Dan, sing. Dan, sing.
Dan, sing. Joe, what do you guys got going on at the Joe Down?
We have Halloween month at the Joe Down. Our first movie, I don't know when we're going to get to it, but it's going to be Maniac Cop.
Fuck yeah. Love that series.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first two I like. The third one is a little shaky.
Was Zadar and Campbell.
Bruce Campbell, yep. Maniac Cop 3 is one of those Alan Smythe movies. So.
Yes, it is. But yeah, it was, what's his name also? Robert Zadar, I believe is his name. That's
Bill Lustig or whatever was the director. Yeah, those are wild movies.
They are wild movies, yeah.
Maniac was, kind of like the original spun off into Maniac, but Maniac's a really good horror movie.
Maniac's a really good horror. I love Maniac. Yeah.
That is messed up.
I think that's on Shudder or
Yep, it's on Shudder.
On Shudder. Okay, so you guys are doing Maniac Cop. You guys want to give us a sneak peek of what else you're going to do?
Nope.
Leave it there. Nope. Okay, I like
leave
that.
it there.
All right. Well, all right, Joe. We got the album. We got everything. We got any other grievances we need to air, sir?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Joe, as always, do you want to take us out?
No.
This has been Rate That Album with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Thank you for listening.